Hello. Welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast, and we're going to talk about rule changes today. A couple little things, a couple fun things. I went dead set against the great Kevin Allen in my blog today. So
shocking.
Well, no, it's kind of shocking. I usually pretty much am on the same page with Kevin. But before we get to that, to Russ with something to say.
So I have a little news about the Harlem Globetrotters. Before I update the news on it, though, I always had a soft spot for the Globetrotters. I think a lot of us did as kids.
Yep.
You know, Curly Neal and all those guys, Marcus Hayes. But Marcus Haynes, rather. Marcus Hayes is a writer in Philly. But what's interesting is I have a little quickie story, and then I'll update you to today. But the quickie story is when I used to be in the hotel business, the last day that I was working at the hotel business in New York, in the city, the Globetrotters were staying at my hotel with the Washington Generals, of course. The Washington Generals, though, had a very famous player, Nancy Lieberman, who's in the Basketball Hall of Fame now. Probably the best women's basketball player ever, or one of them. I would say one of them. And maybe Sue Bird's better. But at any rate, and one day she was standing around the desk and said, hey, I could really go for some chocolate or whatever. And I called up to like the concierge floor and got her some. And so she came down and said, hey, can you go to the Globetrotters tonight? I'll give you tickets. And I'm like, no, I can't go. I'm moving tomorrow. I'm literally driving a movie van and driving down to Richmond, Virginia. And she goes, hold on. And she looks in her book. She goes, we're going to be in Richmond, Virginia. I said, not tomorrow, but I was packing that day. And I think I was moving in like 2 days. Yeah. She goes, we're going to be in Richmond the day you're actually on the road. Why don't I set you up with tickets? And I'm like, sure, fine, whatever. So I leave the hotel. We're on the road. We're getting really bored. In the moving van, we've got like small animals like hamsters. We've got everything.
The ark?
No dogs or cats, just like a hamster, maybe a rabbit at the time. And so I said, hey, why don't we give a call to the Richmond Coliseum and just see if there's tickets there. If there are, maybe we'll go for a little while. I called at a rest stop because there's no cell phones back then. It was in the mid-'80s, late 80s. And so I call. Sure enough, tickets are there. So we go to the game, and it was fun. I said something to her at halftime, and then we left. She spotted us in the crowd. Really nice person. Well, that's the whole Globetrotter thing is like that. Like all the players, guys like Wilt Chamberlain played for the Globetrotters. So now they signed Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts just won a World Series. They're not signing him, but they made him a jersey, and I doubt he'll ever play for him. But apparently he's a really good basketball player, so they made the overture. And I think that's cool. That's one of those things that used to always happen in like the 60s and 70s. Yeah. They're so afraid now with athletes just even associating with another sport that they don't even do that anymore.
So funny. You're so right. It's so true.
But it's fun that they did it because we like to see like dual sport guys, even if he's never going to play basketball.
Yeah, the last thing they want to see is Mookie Betts going out and playing on the court and blowing an ACL, and then he's done.
Mookie Betts could play in his backyard with his kids and blow an ACL.
Well, actually, I mean that's funny. It's funny you say that because there's a lot of like my daughter's soccer team last year. My daughter was a really big travel soccer player, and last year's season got which was her final season in travel soccer before college got cut short because because of COVID, obviously. So we lost, she lost. So she hasn't played with a lot of her friends. And the last time she played with her friends, was in February. And she didn't realize that would be the last time she would ever play with her friends. Hey, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
I take care of this. Tell this. I'm done. Stop it. Hey, 1 second. Shh. Can't you see I'm doing a podcast here? All right. Enough. No barking. Thank you.
All right. You do anything more and I'll tie your ears.
Hey, I know. That's actually the other one, torturing.
The fuzzball. Okay.
Yeah, that's Panda torturing Stella. All right, so several of the girls from her soccer team went on to play in college. Of course, they haven't played yet either, but they are in college now. My daughter chose to go the academic route, had offers from some colleges, but wanted to go to a better school, and she couldn't get, she couldn't play for a Division I team. She's not a Division I player, but she could have played in Division II or III like some of the other girls were doing. But she didn't. So now she's coming back this weekend. As most of the high school, most of the colleges are kind of sending their kids home now that we're coming into Thanksgiving, and she's going to be home and taking her finals from home, and then going to be home until February for the long break. And so in that long break, I'm trying to get together some of the girls on her soccer team to maybe have a game, just a fun game, just among them, just because they don't remember the last time they saw each other they didn't know it would be the last time they saw each other. So. And the problem with that is the NCAA has some rules that if you actually are playing for an NCAA team, you can't play on your own just for fun.
Right. We actually had that happen in college. So I was at the University of Houston, and we were playing flag football, right?
Right.
And I saw this one guy running that I became friendly with who was on the track team, but he didn't run every event. He ran like one. And I said, hey, and I forget his name, but I said, hey, you want to come play football? He goes, yeah. So we found out right away he couldn't catch the ball. If you threw it to him, he dropped it. So basically we taught him how to just catch it if we pitched it to him, and he would run out the field. After like 2 weeks, his coach found out and he couldn't play anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like some of these girls are like, and even though they haven't even played yet in college, like because the season was in the fall, and they might move into the spring. They might not go till next fall. They can't play just a fun pickup game with their friends,
Right.
Which is lame, and I get it. I mean, some of them are getting, if you're getting a scholarship and stuff like that, and I get that, but if you're not getting a scholarship, I'm like, come on, this is like, if you're not scholarshipping someone, do you really have
a scholarship? Like I can't go down to the creek and jump into a tire and swing across the lake.
Yeah, you can't do anything. I mean, I said I could just have a party and hey, someone can throw a soccer ball in the middle of the field. We could be whatever, but can I do that? And it's like but if I threw like a frisbee in there, maybe they could. There's different rules. And I know some are hardcore. Like in a Division I team, if you're a Division I getting a solid like a $70,000 a year education or whatever for free. I get the sport saying, they don't want you to get hurt in another way. I can sort of see that. But this stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is, you know what it is? There's always that threat they're going to drop you and you're going to lose your scholarship. And then your parents will basically kick your ass.
Right. It's just not worth it, worth the risk. But, it's a shame for the many girls who didn't, we're still going to probably do it because, there are only like 4 of the 20 girls. Four of the 20 girls on that team that wouldn't be exempt. Of course, they were those.
If they arrest you or bring you up on charges, do it.
Anyway.
Before we started, I just Russ and I were mentioning this, and Jan tweeted about this. Theo Epstein, who is the great streak breaker of Major League Baseball history. He's the GM who got the Red Sox to win the World Series in 2004, then went to the Cubs and broke the 100-year streak. Well, he resigned as team president of the Chicago Cubs. And Russ, you're rubbing your hands with glee. I would be a little scared about this for one reason. He left the Cubs before he got fired because he's leaving the Cubs in a really bad strait.
I don't care.
It's like he's the guy who traded
taking over. And actually, I heard Heyman or somebody on MLB Network say he was going to be taking over anyhow because, Epstein's run is over. The core is breaking up. Right. And so let him start a core in Flushing. Sandy Alderson can probably still teach him a little something. And that's a mix of young and old that I'd like to see in the Mets front office. So I am rubbing my hands with glee. Yes.
Okay. Well, all right.
Let's get into it. If you guys in the chat room have any rule changes you'd like to, we're going to discuss some possible rule changes. I've got a couple that I think will be controversial. We're going to start with Kevin's right off the bat. All right, so here we go. Ready? Today is the
17th.
17th. Thank you. It's a Tuesday. Wow, this week should be longer. It should be already Thursday.
After Monday.
Yeah, it's not, though. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, November 17th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agella. I'm
Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I had this gray flannel before Mike even thought about
it. And I'm Eklund, not wearing gray. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world.
Now, can I start with this just because it's continuing from yesterday's conversation? Somebody posted this on Reddit, and I think this would have been a better idea than what ended up being used. And this is the Vancouver Canucks jersey that was put on Reddit. That was pretty cool. I like this better than what they put up.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes, that's way better.
I do like that a lot.
I like that.
Greg Wyshynski rated the Canucks jersey. I think he rated it last.
It is a train wreck. It's a train wreck of a jersey. I agree with that. It's just a combination.
And by the way, Ak,
yeah,
I put a poll in my blog yesterday, rating the Leaf jersey.
I saw that.
Four categories: great, good, boring, and god awful. And boring and god awful got almost 80%. So I have been proved correct. Thank you.
You definitely attract like readers to yourself, Mike. It's not really a scientific study, but yes, if you're
They are loyal.
Michael Jelly, you're going to hate that. I think what we've proven that is that if you're a Michael Jelly reader, you're going to hate that jersey with a passion. It makes sense. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm not saying it's. I don't think it's in the middle of the road somewhere in there. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about rule changes. Now, Kevin Allen wrote a blog last week, and he just put another one up today. But the link to the blog is in my blog about getting rid of. He was basically doing a podcast with Tom Laidlaw, former NHL player, friend of Hockey Buzzes. Let me move this dog outside 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, guys. We'll be all set. I'm going to do this. I apologize.
Yeah. We'll cover. But so anybody has some rule changes, tweet, put it in the comments, and we'll discuss them. Russ, why don't we talk about what?
Sorry.
Okay. No.
Let dog out. So anyway, so he and Tom Laidlaw were doing a podcast. Tom does a great podcast, and the podcast concept was going to be rule changes, and they both came up with the same change that they thought, the same rule change, which I thought was pretty interesting, that they thought was a definite thing that should be changed in hockey, and that was getting rid of icing when you're shorthanded. Like basically the concept of, now when you're shorthanded, you can ice the puck as much as you want to and not get an icing call. And they think that is the one thing the NHL needs, a rule change the NHL needs to make. And then to me, I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, I'm not saying
tough call. Like I see both sides to this.
I do, but I mean, and I get, what we want in the NHL, we want scoring, right? We want more scoring. Right. But the fine balance of power plays is something I want to talk about today, because I think I want to dig deep into this, and by digging into this, I think I want to explain that a power play in hockey is an underrated momentum moment that happens. And I mean, it's obviously not completely underrated, but for what it does,
it's not underrated because we know it's important.
It's important, but for what it does, like let's take a team goes on the power play and scores a bunch. They go 2 for 4 on the power play, 3 for 4, 3 for 5, whatever. That makes the team now who's taking penalties very reluctant to play a certain style of game. And they have to lay back. And if they're trying to slow down somebody who might be going around them, they might be like, should I give him a breakaway? Should I give him a power play? Should I give him a scoring chance? Should I give him a power play? And when you're getting scored on the power play all the time, that plays with your head. That the mental aspect, because power plays at their heart are more than just like an extra guy on the ice for 2 minutes. It's really, they are a mental aspect of the game, because the opposite stands true as well. That if you're 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 on a power play, what that does mentally to a team is huge as well. That changes everything in the other direction. And I think that's also a wonderful part of the game. So I don't want to create more offense. I don't want to create power plays. I think there's a good balance now where they're scored on about the right amount of time. And I don't think we need to have more than that. So that's the first thoughts on that first aspect of things.
Well, and Russ mentioned, I think because we briefly discussed this yesterday, and Russ mentioned this, and I really agreed with the point. If you call icings on penalties, games are going to take a lot longer, because it's going to constantly be whistles. They're going
to just ice it. They're going to ice it anyway. We've seen that, like the whole concept of icing the puck being such an evil thing has gone out the window. I mean, we've seen it with when you're trying to, in the empty net at the end of the game, teams just ice it. Where that used to be a big thing. Get to the center line and put it down there. But when with the other team.
When we were talking about it yesterday, Eck, that we were going to talk about today, I thought about it a lot. And you made some good points, and I felt I made good points. But I do think in the end, players are just going to go up to halfway and just dump it in gently, and it's still going to accomplish the same thing. So at the end of the day, what's the difference?
Now, a couple.
Here's the problem with that, because if you're going to do that, so you say you're skating up the ice, with the puck. Now you have the puck in your own zone, and you got to get to the center line and skate it over.
Right, you get to center line, you dump it in.
But making that move, to get to the center line requires one of two things. Either you're going to have to make a pass to somebody between the blue line and the center line who's going to then dump it in, or you're going to carry it yourself all the way out.
Well, nobody lets anybody carry anything anymore. So clearly the goalie will pass it to somebody, or a defenseman will pass to a forward.
That's a forward. That pass from a defenseman to a forward, if that's picked off because you have one less guy on the ice, you're now talking about 3-on-1s the other direction.
Sure.
2-on-1s the other direction. If you get stolen, if you get stripped, of trying to carry it out, same thing. By carrying when you're trying to carry it out, if you don't have coverage, you don't have covering. trouble and you let it cover. Now, what I was saying before that led to what you were saying there, Russ, was that my second point, which is that the icing of the puck during a power play is an important rhythmic aspect to the teams changing lines, moving their guys in and out, and also to the excitement of like if your team's shorthanded, you're holding your breath, waiting. The other team's like working the puck around, it's getting closer to the net, it's getting closer. There's the drama. Your team steals it, ices it. Everybody cheers crazily. There's that relief of you're like, it's iced. Everybody breathes for a second. They come back down, and the same thing repeats itself. I like that ebb and flow of things. I think the excitement of cheering for your team when they ice the puck is actually something that is nice. It's a nice part of the game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have a penalty kill and you uphold it, it does give you momentum. The same as if you have 3 power plays and you're 0 for 3, it starts to work against you too. It's a weird game that way. I don't know where I stand on it. I'm going to leave it the same.
I mean, I'm not for changing that because I think I agree with your point, Ak, is in terms of momentum, in terms of flow. I don't want to upset this, but a couple of people brought up what I was going to bring up, and I think it's time for a change with this. And I'm pretty sure it was in the late 50s or early 60s that they changed the penalties to if you scored a power play goal, the rest of the penalty was, I think it was the Canadians because they scored a ton of goals on power plays and they did away with it. I would be for full 2-minute penalties, no matter if a goal is scored or not. So basically a 2-minute major.
I'm not opposed. I would be easier to make that change, Mike. I agree with you on that one. Along those lines, I would have certain penalties be 1 minute long and certain penalties be 2 minutes long. I think that's another thing that you could actually
in overtime maybe. In overtime, because it's a 5-minute overtime, so why wouldn't you have a 1 minute penalty instead?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought if you had a 1 minute major for certain things, like penalties, like delay of the game, but a penalty that takes away a possible goal should be a 2-minute penalty to me. A penalty that takes away a penalty that's dangerous, but not like quite a 5-minute major, but like a slash or something like that, that's a 2-minute penalty to me. But there are 1 minute penalties, like if you accidentally shoot it out of out of the rink, that's a 1 minute penalty to me. Like that to me is one of the more frustrating things.
Yeah, but that doesn't give a team enough of an advantage. I mean, you're either going to call that a penalty or not. I'm just saying, you're penalizing a team here. Like if it's a 2-minute minor for tripping or whatever, and a team scores within 15 seconds, if you really want to discourage those penalties, make it a 2-minute major, make it a full 2 minutes, no matter what, if a goal is scored.
Yeah.
And you're probably increasing offense by that because it's multiple goals.
If you're a team that has a great penalty kill, like the older Red Wings, not that long ago, someone like Lidstrom's going to shoot it over the glass every time just to get a 1 minute, like because they know they can kill it off in a minute.
Right. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, you don't want to obviously ever take a penalty, so even a 1 minute thing is most goals are scored
all the time.
And I'll tell you, if we went to icing on penalties, the practice that will be the thing that will be practiced over and over to do would be firing it off the glass into the crowd, so you don't get the penalty, but you get the stoppage.
No, but of course you're taking penalties all the time. Like as an example, if you've got Yager going in on a breakaway and you could reach him and hook him, you're going to hook him because they might not score on the power play, but he's going to score on that breakaway.
True. No, I think that's always, we always call that a good penalty, right?
Right.
I do have an issue with another rule change we'll throw in there is the way penalty shots are called now. And I think that I really do miss the good old days of when I was a kid when you had to really be significant. Like a penalty shot was a significant.
Yeah, it did have to be really significant. You're right. Like you had to have full account of the puck. You really had to have it, and you had to have a couple of steps with nothing in front of you. Yeah. Otherwise,
and there are years when your team might not get a penalty shot. Like for the entire season, they might not get a penalty shot. That would happen back in the old days.
It would, because you had to be really like almost guaranteed that you were going to either have that great chance or be in on the net alone. And now it's like you just one step in the right direction and they call it.
Because the rule was you had to be completely on your own. You had to be completely encumbered to the point where you couldn't get a shot off at all. You couldn't get anything, so that nothing happened.
Yeah, like the guy holds your arms and you could have had a breakaway.
Right.
I mean, you can still call a penalty if someone is hacking someone or, as they come in, but you will see penalty shots when guys get good shots off, and it doesn't make any sense to me like that part of it, especially given that we have the shootout now, we see penalties.
Now everybody in the chat room is blaming referees, different referees. I never understand the hate people have for referees. It's such a hard job. Like we all can think about it and say, yeah, sometimes it's bad and something, but it's amazing the grudges that people get with certain referees. It's unbelievable.
I mean, the tough things that referees are, of course, no matter how much you try to, make them into machines, they are humans. They're all going to have different opinions on things, and the NHL tries really hard to make it like this is exactly, everybody call things exactly the same way. It's just not going to happen. There is an element of human nature involving refereeing that's uncanny. The makeup call.
Paul Stewart has told us the nasty things guys would say to him, like.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I mean,
brutal stuff.
I mean, the concept of a makeup call is very real, and it's not just, and it's known, but sometimes it's not even known. Sometimes it's like,
no, they're not perfect. I'm saying you could be mad at referees, but to be mad at one particular one over and over again is the part I don't understand.
Yeah, especially when people are like, "Who's reffing the game?" Right. I always think that's like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like I
remember guys in the press box. You used to say that all the time, Fran. If Fran would look on the sheet to see who was refereeing. Now this is a guy in the media, and if it was, I don't know, name a ref, it was Kerry Frazier, let's say, I'd be like, this isn't going to be a good game at all.
Yeah, you get these things like and it really honestly like no one knows, like it's not on the ticket who's reffing the game. No one cares. It doesn't matter. I mean,
it does affect it though.
I know, Mike. You actually do pay attention to who's reffing. I know you have this thing. You do know, you do tendencies of referees that you do pay attention to.
Not as much anymore because I think they have become more uniform. But back in the day when it was, when it was Wally Harris or Bob Myers or Andy Van Hellemond or what, you could tell there would be a distinct flow to the if Mick McHugh was the referee, or what I'm saying. It's like there was a distinct flow to the game based on who the referee was.
No, there was, and Paul Stewart, our own Paul Stewart was a good example of that. He was a totally different style than a lot of other refs back in the time, and Paul Stewart would let guys fight, would let guys, some guys would break up fights. Paul Stewart would let it happen, things like that. There was definitely a difference, more of a difference now than there is now. I agree with that. But even then, I really never paid attention to who was reffing games,
right?
Unless it was Paul Stewart for some reason. That was like the one thing that I would notice because it would feel like it was a little bit different. But we all had your,
No. See, Michael Cohen, I would be mad about a Bobby Nystrom overtime goal, but I wouldn't hold it against that referee for life.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Would I be mad at the goal? Yeah.
Well, I mean, and Funky brings it up, and of course I have to bring it up. Leaf fans will hate Kerry Fraser until he dies.
Yeah, Flyers fans, it's always gonna be.
They will hate him after he dies. Because that call was ridiculous, but I think it had more to do with the linesman not calling it if he didn't see it, and who the penalty was on.
I'll tell you the biggest problem, and it's not them anymore. Like these guys are in great shape. The two sports that have referees in great shape are basketball and hockey. You can't fake it there. You've got to follow the play and be in great shape, and they skate miles in the game. But the problem is the game is faster than most referees can keep up with now.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't say baseball because Eric Gregg is a fat load.
Joe West can't even move.
Yeah, Joe.
The guys, I was thinking about those guys who ref the 5 overtime game, in the bubble this year.
Yeah,
it was one of the first games of the bubble. Remember, it was like really early in the bubble, and these guys hadn't skated for 7 months, and here they were going 8 periods. It's just insane. I mean, that the shape that they're in is crazy. I mean, there's
crazy.
There's no question there. Of all the refs, I think hockey by far has the best in shape referees.
Do you have another one, Ack? Because I have one.
Yeah, I have another one too.
Okay.
Another one that this is my, and they've already talked about this in the chat room, but this is by far the one. And when Kevin said there's a rule change that we all agreed on, this is where I thought he was going to go. And that is getting rid of the trapezoid, which is absolutely, we've talked about it plenty before, but this is a rule. The trapezoid behind the net is the stupidest rule the NHL's ever put into play. It hasn't It
Well,
hasn't
since Marty Brodeur is retired, you can get rid
right.
of
It
it.
hasn't done anything. It was put into play as a deal that was made during the lockout to get the Flyers to agree to things.
Right, because Ed Schneider was mad.
Because Ed Schneider hated the way that Brodeur would take over games, so Ed Schneider got them to instigate and put this rule in, thinking that would stop Marty Brodeur from handling the puck, which it didn't, because Marty could get it before it went over the ice.
That's not like the only one. I mean, there were plenty of guys good with the puck. He was just.
And yes, the ironic thing is the whole thing that started. The guy that started being good at the puck was a Flyer. Like in Hextall was the best handler forever. But what I hate about it is I'm as a goalie myself. I don't think I think you should be allowed to hit me if I get out of the net. Like I think if I'm out of the crease, I think I should be open game. I really do. I grew up playing that way. I'm
going to tell you, former goalies believe that too. Like I've spoken to Boucher and a bunch of guys on this, and they all believe it should be gone, and they're all okay with a goalie being open season because they grew up that way. They were used to that.
Hold on one second. I gotta take this.
Well, all I can say, Russ, is that one of my favorite games ever, and I always struggle whether it was 78 or 79. I think it was 79 when the Leafs came to Buffalo, and Danny Gare ran Mike Palmateer, who went to the corner where the outside of where the trapezoid was, went to the corner to pass the puck around the boards. Gare comes in and hits Palmateer, and it was on. It was a bench clearing brawl.
Right.
It was phenomenal.
But it's still, I mean, that's a play that still should be in play.
Yeah, if you touch the goalie when he's out there, you're a dead man.
Right. But still, that's how it should be. But it shouldn't be a trapezoid. Look, your hate for Wayne Gretzky is great, but you have to admit that his mastery of being behind the net was second to none, because he would basically goad you into trying to come back there and get the puck from him.
Oh, sure. And then he has the defenseman out of position, and he passes to the open.
And it opens up everything. It was amazing. And other players have tried it before the trapezoid, never really did it the same as him. A few of them were pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, actually, Doug Gilmour was pretty good at it in his day, but there were a few others, but no, nobody.
And I miss that. I miss a guy behind the net being able to make a play like that.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, the excitement of, like, I remember Hasek was one of the ones that comes to mind for some reason. When he would go to the corners sometimes, like deep into the corners to get a puck.
He was the worst stick handler in the world.
He was horrible at it. It was so exciting when he would go into the corner. You would know that something was going to happen. And to me, like, to think that the NHL used this rule that it'll create more offense if the goalie can't go into the corner. I never got that logic at all. It made no sense to me. Like, if a goalie's leaving the net and going further away from the net, that's what creates more offense than that.
And there were goalies. Patrick Waugh would fight you. Dan Cloutier would fight you. Like, there's plenty of goalies that would stick up for themselves too.
Obviously, Hextall would fight you if you took a shot at somebody else. I mean, you all remember that.
And what has the solution been to the trapezoid? The goaltender stops it before the red line. He goes out in between the face-off circle and the red line and stops it before it goes in the area. That's all he does. He comes out 2-3 feet instead of going in the corner. That's it.
Or we have that ridiculous moment where he's standing behind the net, waiting for it to get across, and it's trickling down slowly, and that's like a stupid thing too. And I think all the time I've seen it called like 3 times for a goalie touching it outside the trapezoid. And maybe since I've been watching, maybe you guys have seen it more than that.
Yeah, they give more leeway than just the trapezoid. They definitely
give it way more leeway, and they should, because it's a dumb rule. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, Russ, I don't know if we're going to see people mimic this, but I don't know if you saw the highlight, but Askarov in the KHL in the last couple days was behind the net and did a spinorama to avoid the checking forward.
I didn't see that. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. I mean,
he's super athletic, so it's not just
athletic. That's pretty crazy. That's awesome. No, I think that just, to me, this just makes it's really dumb, really, really dumb.
Yeah.
I don't understand it at all.
It has to be a PA thing where they just want to protect goalies. It can't be anything else at this point.
I feel like the NHL is holding on to, like, the NHL had this real pride about the rules they made after the missed season. Like, there was a big rule, and I feel like this is one of them that they've tied into it, and they shouldn't. I mean,
like shootout.
Yeah, the shootout, the elimination of the 2-line pass, which was the elimination 2-line pass was a fantastic rule. We all agree. Like, there's nothing. It was the dumbest thing ever, the 2-line pass, and that's made the game so much more interesting. But
and tag up offsides.
And tag up offsides made it better too. Yeah. And these rules that were like, they were kind of obvious rules that should have been obvious for a very long time. But this weren't, and then they had one, but right after the lockout, which I thought made so much crazy sense. And then I'll let you guys go with yours. Okay. This one bothers me too. Right after the lockout, they had this rule that it wasn't icing if it was an attempted pass. And it was like a brief period of time. And
the thing that's ridiculous right now, Ek, is we see icings where there's a defenseman within 2 or 3 feet of a shot. It's like, okay, he can touch it.
We need to loosen that up. And the attempted pass thing, to me, getting rid of the 2-line pass made it for some really exciting stretch passes, some really good interesting set guys up on breakaways with cool stretch passes. And the stretch pass was even made more exciting by this rule that it wasn't icing if it was an obvious attempted pass. Like if you just missed on the pass, just missed it or whatever, it wasn't icing. And I love that rule because it made the game. And then for some reason that rule went away, and I don't remember it specifically being taken away. They just stopped calling it that way.
There's another one too. I think they let it go away, but when they first came back from the lockout, the one where if you scored a goal and the play was still going on, they could go back and review it and they would just count it at a stoppage of play. I think they finally did away with that.
I'm not sure.
I don't think it's happened in years. If it didn't do away with it.
Yeah, I don't think it has happened in years. If it has, I agree with you on that one.
That was also a weird one. It's like, well, why are you letting the play go on if you believe there's a chance there was a goal?
Yeah,
I never understood that.
I've got another one, Mike, but I'm not mocked. Why don't you put one out first?
Well, mine is the one that I've complained about for a while, and that's with that would eliminate a lot of controversial reviews, and that's having the offsides be plain rather than the foot down on the ice. The foot down on the ice is ridiculous because you're not using cameras that are so sharp that you can differentiate between the blade being on the ice and the blade being an inch or two off. Whereas if you have the camera right on the line, you can tell whether any part of that body is breaking the plane. And that would simplify things so much.
Yeah, I wish they would do that too. It seems like when they did the offsides thing with the skate in the air thing was the same time that that Major League Baseball did away with the neighborhood play at second base. And, now it's like, okay, a guy has to keep his foot on second, but he might break his ankle now.
Yeah.
And that's dumb, but that's the way they do it now in Major League Baseball. And for this, it's like, again, if you have to look at it 12 times to see if a guy had a skate in the air, just let it go, man.
Yeah, if it's that close. I mean, if it's that close, I agree. I mean, I almost feel like it needs to be it really needs to be blatantly obvious.
It has to be blatant. It should be anyhow.
And and really
so fast. We all have to admit, look, we've all been watching hockey for most of our lives, and we still have to admit sometimes something happens and you didn't see it.
No, that's true. But we also have all been watching hockey so long that we have a real instinctual built-in offsides meter in our heads. Like you'll see something play moving at really high speed, and you're like, that looked offsides, or that was offside. It's just, and you really, linesmen have that even more so. This is their job. So there's a real, I think linesmen in general are very, very good at offsides. I really do. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they miss many, and these ones that they miss by a millimeter or whatever are ridiculous. You're right.
And it's now become a tool for the coach, the opposing coach, to just take a goal off the board, and I don't like it for that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that brings that's a good.
There's a penalty. I get it if they're wrong, but still,
that's a good transition. It goes along with my next one, which is the coach's challenge rule.
I think Mike was going to add to that, though.
Go ahead.
Coach's challenge rule, which in general is completely ridiculous. And I think the concept of that, if you think something was wrong, then you challenge it, and the replay shows that you were wrong, that you get penalized on it. They have to make that decision whether or not you're going to take a penalty or not to try to get the right call is a stupid thing. That's not the right way.
I'll tell you what's dumber though, Ek? What's dumber is in the NFL, if a coach wants to challenge, they have to throw that beanbag.
Yeah.
There's so much controversy because like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, maybe even 3, I may have been Doug Peterson. It was somebody, they threw it so far that it was out of the eyesight range of any of the refs, and they only picked it up on replay and said, "Hold on, it was a timeout."
They do a replay to see if they scored.
He thought he was Dave Parker.
Yeah.
No, I mean, to me, this is the thing. Like, we saw it last year. Like, the NHL in the last 5 minutes of a game should go to the NFL concept, where if there's something possibly weird, it's looked at automatically, because the Flyers ran into this situation last year, and other teams have run into this situation where, it was, I forget. I know the Flyers Vigneault challenged something, but against the Islanders, they lost on, and because he lost on it, the goal stuck, and he was now shorthanded. But it was close enough that it was worth re-looking at. It should have been worth re-looking at. Like, it should have been like, that just makes sense that we should look at that.
I agree, because I don't like it when you hear them say after, "Well, that wasn't reviewable." Everything should be reviewable.
Everything should be reviewable. Yeah.
Honestly, the league that has it best for hockey is the NCAA. They do look at everything. They look at everything at ice level. They don't wait for someone in Toronto to call them or converse with them. They do it all right there. And I'm telling you, you don't hear as many issues with college hockey games.
Yeah. I mean, you have plenty of time, plenty of cameras to review every goal while players are celebrating and going around and going back 30 seconds and seeing if anything happened within 30 seconds. I've said this before, and I stick by it, that it should be like, if it hit the glass, if it hit this, and this goes into this next rule, which is that an offsides that happened 4 minutes ago should not delete a goal that happens as not a result of that offsides. Like the concept of once it leaves the zone, okay, now the clock resets on whether or not you can review the first offsides is ludicrous to me.
Yeah, it's become annoying, I think, for the viewers, fans, and even media when you see like a really kind of interesting goal being scored, and the opposing coach is already just looking at the iPad, seeing if they can even make it a challenge for an offside, just to see if they can possibly take a goal off the board. That's how desperate they get sometimes, just to change the momentum.
Like, what if you had a button? What if you had a button, you're the coach, and you see something that you think is possibly offside, and you just press that button as it happened?
Like it was Jeopardy?
Yeah, like you press that button, so that button's now alive, and the goal's scored. But so now, instead of going back and looking at the iPad, you thought that was offsides. You press the button. They say, "Oh, a button's been pressed in that play." Okay, bam, we're gonna check this out. I don't know, something like that would be better. Where you had because I agree, looking at the iPad, looking at the replay before you challenged on the replay feels like cheating. First off, so it's right, because you're seeing what the replay is going to show.
Yeah.
So why not, if you think it's wrong, press the button, and that.
I like that idea.
I don't know, something like that.
This is a piddly little one, but I'll bring it up anyway.
Michael picked about it anyhow.
Yeah, right, exactly. Some friends of mine, when they were in high school, they played basketball against each other. Their schools played, and there was a situation in the game where the one player drove to the lane to make the basket, and the other player blocked him, and the referee called a block and a charge, a double foul.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this, which is ridiculous. It's either one or the other. And in the NHL, it's either a tripping penalty or it's a dive. It can't be both.
Right, I know. I've heard this argument. I agree. I get what they're doing with it, but it is one of those moments where it's so hard to say. And if it's that hard to say, don't call anything. Like, if it's going to be to me, that's what you do. The simple reaction is, yeah, he tripped, but he dove, but he was also pulled a little bit. So he wanted to make sure that everybody knew he was being tripped. That's the argument, right? So I go down because I want to make sure, because guys like Mario Lemieux or, Malkin and
back in the day.
Yeah. So to me, that they want to avoid that, and some guys never go down, I remember John LeClaire, would hardly ever go down, and he was being Tim. I don't
want to say it's close to soccer, but NHL's gotten close where when there's some certain guys in the league, and I'd say there's more than just 2 or 3. I think there's 5 to 7 of these guys.
Yeah.
And they feel any kind of pressure, they just go down.
Yeah. And please tell me, and okay, even if it's somebody on a league minimum deal making $700K, but somebody's making $5 or $6 million a year, does he really care that he's getting fined $5,000 and that he's getting pointed out for being a diver? Everybody knows the guy's a diver already. Who cares about
that same player gets commended if he's not called for diving for
Right. They'll pass around the hat in the locker room and take care of that guy. Don't worry about that.
It's tip money. It's
because
not.
you hear coaches say, oh man, that he never goes down at all when he's pulled on. He should go down once in a while and get the calls. Like that's the other thing you'll hear. The other side of
too
that.
much of that now, I believe.
Yeah, but that's a commendable thing. If that's what's weird about it. So it's like
I know it is weird about it because coaches like it because it gets them a power play.
Yeah,
I don't like it though because I just feel like when we see the replays, I would say 10%. When we see replays, there is a good 5 to 10% that we look at and say, he went down. He didn't really, there wasn't that much contact there.
But it's so hard to tell because they're moving at such a fast.
It is hard to tell though.
And remember, we forget that they're skating on like a thin thing, and it's just like, it is easy to be tripped up in that mode, it's like, and it looked like, they could have easily avoided it. But some players, they're just so good on their skates that never go down.
Right.
I really have an issue with, that's not commendable either. So basically tripping is a really hard thing to call in any sport. Because in general, I think
one that doesn't get called anymore. I can't remember the last time it was called clipping.
Yeah, clipping in hockey. Yeah, no,
I can't remember the last time I saw that called. Mike, you?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I do remember it being called, but not for ages and ages and ages. No, the other thing that used to be called a lot but isn't called anymore is the holding the stick. Remember that concept?
Right.
And in the last few years, we've seen less and less of that too.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because players aren't doing it anymore.
No, they're doing it.
I think they're still doing it. I think the NHL did a good job at taking some of the hooking and the holding up of players out of the game. I think they really did a pretty good job, and it would be incredible to see what guys like Lemieux could do.
Yeah, if Lemieux was in this era, A, he wouldn't be bitching about it, and B, he would have 150 points.
He would be beating Gretzky's records or right up there with Gretzky for sure. Because he was pulled on constantly, and guys like an Eric Lindros or would have been able to do in a period like in an era like this too. It's just
like what Funky wrote. He wrote, "Diving's a skill now, barbarizing." Yep.
But yeah, we remember. Yeah, Billy
I used
Barber
to complain about that.
Famous for that.
Oh yeah.
Famous for that, and making it look good. At the end of the day, there can be both on a play, but I think if there's both, call none. That's my opinion. It's because otherwise you're just creating another 4-on-4 situation or what have you, which is you
can go back to the 2000 season and a few of those, and it was still the end of the clutch and grab era, and there was so much of that going on. It was crazy.
Oh, it was. The Devils, they lived on, died on it, and the Devils trapping concept, which
no offense to Ken Danico as an example, but
Oh no, but he made a career.
Good example.
He would admit to it. He made a career out of that in this era. In this era, he's not an NHL player.
No,
because that's what he did best, and those guys just were really good at holding up guys, and it was a big deal to hold up little. It still goes on though. There still is slowing down guys, holding up guys a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as it was for sure. And but
I'm telling you, I'm still to this day, I still think what Sean Avery did to Brodeur was totally fine, just because nobody ever did it before. He got penalized for it, and that was baloney.
Yeah, I remember.
He got penalized. See, the thing was, he didn't get penalized for the action. He got
Explain what it was. A lot of people probably don't remember it.
Him jumping, flailing his arms and jumping in front of, that. Okay,
right.
He didn't get penalized for the action. He got penalized because Sean Avery is a bleep.
I know, but he shouldn't have been penalized.
He shouldn't have been, but that was the reason why, because
and Brodeur complained about it, of course.
Exactly.
Thing, but at the same time, there was nothing illegal about it.
Right.
No, and we've seen it. You've seen it now. We saw Corey Perry screaming at guys in the bubble and stuff like that. We just out of nowhere, just yelling, a crazy scream at somebody. It happens all the time now. Konechny does it. Other players do it constantly. It's not there's. I agree. It was.
Here's something funny because Funky wrote this. He wrote, Avery called Brodeur fatso. So there was a time in 2009 when we were doing a book signing. We had an hour or two to kill, and we happened to be in the neighborhood of where Sean Avery's bar was. So we went into the bar, and there was a book that you sign in for, and so we were signing in, and someone signed in fatso.
Nice, beautiful, beautiful.
It was great. It was a lousy bar though. He had no idea how to run a bar. This bar was a bar for
no supermodels.
Huh?
No supermodels.
That's what it was like. It was like a bar for models, not a bar for like sports people.
Right.
And yeah, it was a bad.
That's like a typical NHL thing, trying to be like hipper than the room sometimes.
Yes, and that's exactly what it was.
And they, the NHL should take, should endear itself to what it is and not try to be something that it's not.
I agree with that.
I think also
a good example of that is sometimes the talent that they have singing for them.
Yeah. I mean, I went to one thing
this year.
I went to the one thing, the Victoria's Secret thing I went to one time, which was Victoria's Secret models and young stars, and it was like an NHL media event for some reason. We got invited. The media got invited, which I couldn't even understand. I guess the NHL just wanted people to write about how they were hanging out with Victoria's Secret models, but it was bizarre. It was in New York.
Right.
It was in New York City. I'm like, I had to go to it. I'm like, this is crazy to get invited to this. I'm like, I gotta see what this is like, and it was the most uncomfortable thing in the world. It was literally like Victoria's Secret models, and then Mike Richards and Jeff Carter showing up in a limo in their like jeans and flannel shirts, walking into this New York City bar, not knowing what the hell was going on.
Oh, it was in New York City, not Seattle City.
It was straight up New York City, and it was crazy.
It was not on Dry Island.
It was like it was like models and Western Canadian farm boys, and it was like the two never should meet. There was no connection between these people at all. They could not relate to each other in any way, shape, or form. This is really early on in Carter's career.
It's just like
let me tell you about my tractor. Yeah.
Like sometimes when they reach out for the talent, it's like even if Taylor Swift were to tell you, "Yeah, I like hockey," she's not a hockey fan. Don't have her sing at a hockey game. You're not going to get extra people watching because Taylor Swift's doing it. Maybe for 2 minutes you will. But it's not going to help your event. And I wish they would sort of stray away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
And get the ones that really do like hockey. Get the artists that really are fans of the game. Those are the ones that work out great.
Yeah. I agree. They do. And we've seen it happen, and there are more and more hockey fans all the time. And there's plenty of hockey fans out there that,
like even in Nashville now, I don't want to call country singers not sincere because their music is pretty sincere, but as far as them being hockey fans, I've found them to be less than sincere sometimes to get a gig at a Preds game. Don't you?
Yeah, that's true. But there are some like serious like Predators fans down there too. Like
no, there are. But don't you
Vince Gill
done it just because it's Nashville now and they're getting a break rather than if they say, "Oh, look, I like hockey and my band could," I feel like they've gotten too many of them have done that.
Hell, I don't think Carrie Underwood likes hockey, and she's married to a hockey player.
Yeah, she does now though.
Yeah,
I mean, but Vince Gill is the perfect example. Like he is all Predators all the time, and
that's fine.
He's 100% in. And the crazy about Vince Gill is, he's a legendary historical country guy down there.
He's a bluegrass guy. It's a difference.
I'm just saying, if there was like this era,
Vince Gill. Did you know that Vince Gill sang was in the Prairie League, which is a crazy.
Yeah,
right. And then that song "Amy," is sung by Vince Gill, which I didn't realize until really recently. Funny, I should have, but he's like a serious. He's definitely. But I've met him twice when I've been down there. He's been backstage, with the Predators, stuff like that, wearing his Predators jersey.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, as a good example would be like if there was a this era's Johnny Cash and you invited him to sing at an NHL game, like Johnny Cash wouldn't have cared about hockey.
Right. That's for sure. That's very true. Very true. For sure.
Got some stuff here from
Richard Dean Anderson. Hold on. Why is Richard Dean Anderson coming up? Just because he's Canadian?
No, he used to play hockey.
Oh, that's right. He did play a little, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, and he also diffused the bomb.
That is because he played hockey just because.
Jesus! He also diffused the bomb with a hockey stick. Yeah, there you go.
And most of those guys, wouldn't have played hockey if they weren't Canadian. So hey.
Yeah, I mean Michael J. Fox played a little hockey, but like, come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pierre LeBrun updated on the scheduling and the negotiations between the NHL and the PA. He said they've been having daily calls and that the return to play committee, the players increased it from 5 to 16 players. They've been having talks every day this week, but not with the NHL internally. And that's the thing that I think is a little bit of a scare here because they still really haven't broached the sort of the elephant in the room, which is the prorating of salaries. And LeBron says they're still hoping for a January 1st puck drop, and they want the cup to be awarded by July 15th, which means probably a season of 60 plus games and the all Canadian division to start the year because of the border. But right now it says, they would have to announce this by the end of the month. And if they haven't even talked to the players yet, they're sort of waiting on that because as the last thing. And that's the most important thing. If they don't get the players on board here, we could have something where, like Major League Baseball, they delayed the start of the season because they couldn't agree.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I think that they have a better sense of it than baseball had of it, as far as what the players are willing to do. And I think that baseball really.
Wait. We're still going to hear some arguing.
I'm not saying there's not going to be arguments. I'm not saying that there isn't going to be.
I think they're going to nitpick over every little detail because last time they were very generous about it, and I felt like their feeling was maybe it didn't go exactly the way they thought it would. So now they're going to probably try and keep it tighter. For lack of a better phrase.
They were under the.
They're already getting that though. When you're getting out of the bubble, they're already getting certain things. Remember, that didn't.
I know.
They were under the impression that what they gave up with the CBA, meaning 20% of escrow and 10% rollback, was all they were going to have to give up.
Yeah,
and that's clearly, I think that there was thoughts that, we could start the season in November or December, and that wasn't reality. And now you can't get an 82 game schedule starting on January 1. So, I mean, this is something that this is a bridge that is going to be tough to cross.
It's not going to be super easy. I agree with you, but I don't think it's going to be baseball hard either. So I think it's somewhere in the middle there. Like baseball almost lost the whole season because of it.
Yeah, they got close.
I don't think that's going to happen with the
it won't be like that. But I do think there'll be moments like this isn't getting done quickly. I know it has to get done in a certain amount of time, but it's not getting done tomorrow.
Right. It's not getting done tomorrow. I agree with that 100%. That would be ridiculous tomorrow because they haven't even met yet.
I use that as an example.
I understand. I agree with you there.
I don't even know if it'll get done by Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one too. Very much true. Yeah, we have anything else here? Anything else really today?
Well, the only thing I could say was Eugene Melnick was interviewed on Bob McCowan's podcast, and he basically said that, and this is he had said before that he didn't want to play the season if there were no fans in the stands, and then yesterday he sort of modified his statement to say that, if we get fans in the stands by March or April. So, obviously, and this is what we talked about with Kevin on Friday, you knew that Gary Bettman was going to get everybody in line.
Yeah.
And so Bettman has got all of his ducks in a row, but now, like I said, now he's got to tackle the biggest problem, which was getting the players to buy into what he has in mind.
Yeah. That is the biggest problem. And it's going to be, Melnick would have been one of the harder ones because for a lot of reasons, obviously they're financially not in great straits. They also don't have a great team. There's not a lot of expectations there. So there's situations there with Ottawa.
Now we should talk about the Oilers because it became very public that they have a bill with a hotel, and that to me I find very interesting because it's like, hold on, we kind of thought that Katz was a billionaire, and if that's the case, how could he have like an outstanding bill for what was it, conference rooms?
I don't know if it was conference rooms, but it was a bill to the two bills total $55K, and I'm like, okay, I can't afford that. But it's like,
that's nothing to them. Come on, that's great.
Right, exactly.
No, I will tell you. I can tell you just from working in that business. Bob Dylan stayed at a hotel of mine once, and the accountant comes up. He gets the bill from me. 15, 20 minutes later, I look around. He's gone. So the controller says, hey, where's Bob Dylan to settle up? And I'm like, they walked away with the bill. They just left. And that bill literally took about 2 months for Bob Dylan to pay. And you would say, hey, Bob Dylan's a millionaire. Why didn't he pay it? And So if this hotel is making this public, that means they've been trying for quite some time to get this bill paid, because we never made it public with Bob Dylan, and they could have, right? They could have come out and said it to the local
It's an
press.
Edmonton hotel too, right?
Yeah, it was a Hyatt hotel. Like, it was a big, hotel chain.
Right.
So you kind of wonder if it's gotten to this point, that's bad. And all the Oilers were saying is, yeah, they're taking care of it. But it's like, well, why didn't you take care of it?
Yeah. Why did they take care of it before now? It's a good question. I mean, somebody just not. I mean, you know that this is somebody has this job. This is some guy or some girl has this job, and they are completely. It's easy for them just to be lazy and drop the ball. Like, I could see that. It could be something. I don't think there's any big nefarious about the owner and all that stuff. It feels more like someone just like not doing their job, or someone who has a personal vendetta with the hotel, or something else that could be there. Or there could be more to it. I doubt it's the Oilers' job.
Yes, I have a degree in hotel restaurant management, people. I do.
Yeah. That's true.
And I've had to lock out some famous people, Jeff Conway being one of them.
There you go.
Kanicki, a hickey from Kanicki is like a Hallmark card.
No joke. In Philly, he left us with a bill, and we locked him out. And of course, when he came down to see why he was locked out, he was supposed to pay up. Then there was this whole thing, and they ended up just kicking him out of the hotel.
So Russ, when you're traveling across and you just pull over, like, we're going to stop at the next, Hotel 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
You're getting good rates. You know how to get the good rates, right? You're like the guy.
Yeah. So the biggest these days, and it's changed, the business has changed a little, but if you're getting, because of the online services, there's a little less flexibility.
Yep.
My best advice is don't go into the hotel. Go onto one of those services, even if you're around the corner from it, and get the best rate from that. Now, if you don't have time to do that, then your best chance is you go AARP, you go AAA, right. You go any kind of affiliation. Now, if they're close to sold out, they're going to tell you to drop dead anyhow, but you do that. But I will tell you this, if you're around a hotel and it's like 10:30 at night and you're only staying that night,
right,
you can get a cheaper rate, because the guy on the night shift is going to be, he's told to just sell out the hotel if he can.
Sell anything he can, right?
And so at that, there becomes a point like 11:30, 12, where they'll take a lot less on a rate.
It's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been driving around a lot in that situation, obviously, and
that's how you do it.
Yeah, usually
in suites. That's funny, and Adam.
I just figured out I can do this too. I can move people around.
Yeah.
I never knew that before. All right. Okay. That is all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
And don't ever pay rack rate. And
Never.
If you don't know what that is, look it up.
Yeah, that's for losers and Canadians. We'll talk to you later, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We